The 2025 Ford Expedition gets new styling, a new interior, and also a new Tremor edition for the first time. In this video, I'm going to cover the exterior, the interior, take it for a drive both on-road and off-road in that Tremor to see what it's like to drive, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect, and also the pricing and how it compares to the competition. And so as far as the styling here on the 25 Expedition, I think it's a really nice change. So we have this all new front end here that has these interesting headlights that have a reflector portion, which almost to me gives it a slightly old school kind of feel, although they are LED as standard. But we also have this daytime running light that runs through the headlights and through the grille as well. And this one also is the Stealth Appearance package. We're also looking at a Platinum Max trim of the Expedition here. And the trims have also gotten changed for 2025. So previously you had some lower base trims, those have been removed. So we now start with the Active trim, and then you actually go up to the Platinum, which starts lower than the Tremor and the King Ranch, but then you go up to the Tremor and the King Ranch versions. And then this Platinum, though, you can load up to be the most expensive version of the Expedition. But this one here, has this really nice wild green paint, they call it, which is a nice greenish gray, and nice to see some color for sure, and subtle color, but looks great. I also really like this one has these 22-inch wheels with this Stealth Appearance package, and that gives you, in addition to the darker wheels, also the black badging, the black grille, black mirror caps. All those little touches are really nice and give us a nice stealthy look here. And also you can get up to 24-inch wheels for the first time on an Expedition here on the Platinums, but this one has the 22s, and I think they also look very nice and probably give you a slightly better ride quality than the 24s as well, although the top versions of the Expedition do also get adaptive dampers to certainly help with that. But anyway, coming down to the sides here, you have the nice, again, black trim here on this one, and this being, again, the Max is a little longer in the back there. It basically just gives you about a foot more cargo space there, and all Expeditions do get about 13% more cargo space, even though dimensionally these are all basically about the same size as the outgoing generation of the Expedition, but you do have a little bit more cargo space thanks to the way they restyled that rear tailgate in the hatch area. And then going out to the back there, you see those new taillights now, and then you also do see that new tailgate, which has the black portion for the top half there, and it does split, and this is a big deal. They added a new area to the production line and everything in order to do a split tailgate here, and it's a really nice feature so that if you have stuff that can easily roll out and you're on an incline, it's nice to have it all held in there. It also just gives you an extra little spot to sit down. There's a variety of different things you can set up tables there for tailgating, and just so many different capabilities for that. A really nice new addition here for the Expedition, and otherwise though looks really nice with those new taillights and all that. And so yeah, from every angle I think it's nicely freshened up, definitely looks new, but still is very familiar, and I think it's not going to ruffle too many feathers either. The interior of the 2025 Expedition is really cool. Obviously a wild departure from the past generation of the Expedition, and also a wild departure from anything else Ford does and anything else really we see in the industry. And there's some really thoughtful additions and touches that they've added to this as well, where they really did think through how to make it better, not just as far as screen real estate or checking boxes, but also just other little tiny things that don't really stand out at first glance that are very, very nice. So anyway, the first thing, sitting down in these seats, we have some leather seats here in this Platinum that we're in right now, and they're really nice soft leather seats. They're perforated, they're heated and ventilated here, which is great, and just a nice seat shape, just very comfortable. Now it's surprising though that in addition to having the lumbar adjustment, we don't have any massage. That's something you can get in the F-150, I believe, in its Platinum trim. So the fact we don't have that here in this is a little surprising, that there's no way, I believe, to get any kind of massage. But other than that, really, really great seats. The steering wheel here is another really big departure here. So we have a flat top and a flat bottom, as well as basically no buttons here. That's a theme I'll continue to talk about here in this video. But so the flat top is mostly to accommodate this screen. Now, if you're tall, it might be unnecessary, but if you're on the shorter side like me, I'm 5'9", that flat top really does make a difference, so I can clearly see the speed readout here on this screen. And also it does have a great 9-3 grip, which is good, and I do like having no bottom spokes, so you can hang your hand off the bottom if you'd like. But yeah, no buttons. It's gonna be a little confusing, a little bit of a learning curve here, but basically, if you remember the old iPod days, you kind of use these pads like an iPod scroller wheel. So whenever you put your finger over them, it's going to give you a display there in the gauge cluster that, you know, you can adjust things. And also there's no way to manually adjust the steering wheel or the pedals. They got rid of those buttons. So now you have power adjustments here in the screen here. And so that's going to be the way that you do that. Now, thankfully, it's pretty straightforward and it's not hidden away like you see in some other vehicles. Then there's sub-menus in their screens. So I think Ford's actually done this better than most. I still would like to see some regular, you know, switches and stuff, but I guess it's cost cutting, even though we're talking about very expensive vehicles here. You know, they decided to go in that direction. So again, it's something you can get used to. Usually you're not adjusting your steering column and adjusting, you know, your pedals more than once or twice, you know, if you own one of these. So it's not the biggest deal, but just be aware of that. The left side here will do your cruise controls. Now, you also have no headlight controls while we're on the topic of no buttons. They got rid of the headlight switch here. You still strangely have a drive mode switch. I feel like that could have been sacrificed instead of the headlight one. But so we have a drive mode selector here on the left with your four-wheel drive controls. But for the headlight controls, that is now on the screen. They're following GM, even though GM got a bunch of backlash for that. We have, you know, the screen-based headlight controls here. That's another thing, though. Most people will leave it in automatic mode and not mess with it. But, you know, if you're in a construction zone in the middle of the day, you're going to have to go in and, you know, press the button there in order to turn on your lights manually. You know, again, not ideal. You know, it is what it is. You know, there's no point in fighting. It's just the cost cutting that we're seeing. But, you know, that is just another choice to be aware of. But moving on to this gauge cluster here, it is really impressive. It's a 24-inch panoramic display, and it also takes the place of a head-up display because it is so high. And I actually really like this. You know, at first glance, it might seem kind of polarizing, and some people might not like the idea of this, but it actually, I've been 2 days of driving this vehicle now. I've really gotten used to it, and I really do enjoy it because it does put everything, you know, right up there at the top view for you there. But there isn't really a whole lot of adjustment there. And honestly, if you're not in the right drive mode, you don't even have a tach anymore. Now, you do have auxiliary gauges you can put up there on the right-hand side, which is certainly nice. I also love having the map view right up top there because that always stays up there. And that means you can do whatever you want with the touchscreen down here and still always know what direction you need to be going in. And that's actually really nice. So I do really love this whole display here. Now, coming down, you have a 13.2-inch touchscreen. This is the same screen we're seeing in a lot of other Fords they've been rolling out. It has the new Ford digital experience, and it's really nice and simple. You know, doing all the basic stuff's nice and easy. It does have wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, thankfully. It also has Google built in, so you have the Google Voice Assistant there. You have the Play Store. You have, you know, Google Maps, of course, and all that is built in. And if you want to sign in and run apps natively, you can download them from the Play Store there and have them always running here. And we also have like YouTube. We have Amazon Prime Video, HBO Max. You even have video games. You can all do all that stuff while you're parked. And, you know, really cool. But I love how simple this is. You know, a lot of other screens are still really confusing these days. There's not a whole lot of options, but that's a good thing. You know, everything they want to use is nice and easy to find, not too confusing. The other thing, though, you might not love is, of course, we've lost all the HVAC controls. It's all on the screen now, but it's always in this ever-present bottom row. Again, might not be ideal, might even be a deal breaker for some. But what I can say is that, again, with auto climate control, which is standard, you know, you set it, you're probably not going to be messing with it a whole lot. And if you do need to mess with it, again, everything is, you know, even like heated seat and cooled seat controls is just, you know, 2 taps basically to turn those on. You know, it's not bad. And, you know, I think that, you know, might not be ideal to everybody, but I think that it's certainly livable and shouldn't be a deal breaker, really. And and you also have a nice little lip at the bottom of it here to rest your finger on. And then you have just a few buttons here, shortcuts for like your camera, which is really great to have. And you also have your, you know, gear selector and volume knob, which are nice, and knurled metal, which is great. And interesting, you also have a gear selector here if you are doing any kind of low speed kind of driving or towing. It's great to have that. You also have some interesting trim now, like the King Ranch we were in the other day had some wood, but this one just has this plastic trim, and then also you have this plastic down here. Looks like metal, and it has a nice texture to it, but is plastic, unfortunately, so not genuine there. But you do have some other stuff that does feel a little bit more like actual metal plated around by like your air vents, for example. And then you have the center console here, which does have a wireless phone charger, your trailer controls, a USB-A and USB-C jack there, which is you know, nice because a lot of others don't have USB-A anymore. And a little cover over top of that. You also have larger cup holders here. This area, though, I will will say, I wish this was padded, because it looks nice, but it's hard, even on this Platinum here. And with BlueCruise, you might be resting your knee on this a little bit more, and it'd be nice if that was, you know, nice and softly padded, but it's not, unfortunately. You do have some nice soft padding for the center armrest, though, and you open that up, and you'll see, you know, pretty nice deep cubby with 2 more USB-C jacks, a power outlet, and a nice little removable tray. But this whole thing does slide back, which is the really cool feature. It's power operated, and it's electric, so that if, you know, the vehicle's off, this is locked, and you can't get into that. But you slide that back, and you have a nice large space for a handbag or a takeout, you know, something like that. And, you know, really a nice bonus space here, and does also allow this to go closer to the second row there. Other storage spaces, you have nice large pockets in the doors with a bottle holder, and you also will see in the door here the B&O stereo, which the top trims have a 22 speaker B&O stereo system, a really nice improvement there, and, you know, should be a really good sounding experience there, especially whenever you're using, you know, your top streaming services there. Moving on here to the second row here. So this one has the captain's chairs, but doesn't have any kind of console in the middle there. There's, of course, a bunch of different varieties. You can, of course, get a bench in that second row. And so back there, though, it's a good amount of space. Nothing's really changed dimensionally, you know, as far as the actual vehicle itself. So that's all going to be about the same as the, you know, last generation of the Expedition. So that means, you know, I, being 5'9", have a couple inches of legroom to spare. Of course, you have sliding seats. You can custom tailor that. You also have just a little bit of headroom, but not a ton, honestly. That's the only thing. It is a little bit of a tighter squeeze if you're going to be on the taller side. And they have pockets in those doors. When you look forward, they have their own climate controls. Only heated rear seats back there, though. No option for ventilated. That's something that I believe some of the others do offer. It'd be nice to see that here, but only heated available. And you have your cup holders there at the top, and little holes here to tie stuff down, which is convenient as well. And also another power outlet there. You also have a nice large pass-through into the third row, which is the easiest way in this one in particular to get into that third row. And it's a nice large third row. Again, same as last time, really, but you have, you know, even without the seat being slid forward, with the seat all the way back in the second row, plenty of space there for me to still sit back there, you know, for a little while. And then if you, again, slide that second row up, you got, you know, even more space. So totally, you know, usable third row for adults. Good amount of headroom back there. You have 2 cup holders and 2 USB-C jacks on the driver's side. Passenger side, interestingly, only has 1 cup holder, but still at least 2 USB-C jacks and those little cubbies too. And then moving on to the cargo space here. Again, that split tailgate. Again, 13% more cargo space than the last generation due to that new tailgate design. And I do really love the split thing. Again, it's so nice to have that little table features really nice. And you also see that you have power outlets back there. You have the buttons there to do the dropping of that, you know, third row. And, you know, just a good amount of space. You will see a little bit of extra bonus space here, at least on the Max version, in the front there as well. You can open up. And so, yeah, should be really, really great, especially here for this Max version. Again, 12 inches or so of extra cargo space there, but a really good amount of space. But anyway, let's start it up and go for a drive. So regular forward key still, nothing new there. But of course, it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the 2025 Expedition. So we're actually starting off right here on a nice windy little bit of road, which actually I think nicely shows off the revised suspension you have here in this. So it's still front and rear independent suspension. And these upper trims, you also have the adaptive dampers. It's the continuous control dampers that they call it at Ford. And the one thing that, I mean, I've actually been riding passenger in this vehicle for a couple hours now, and it's very comfortable and very soft. Now, I will admit I don't have a recent experience in the old Expedition to compare. So, you know, I think especially if you're getting out of the old one into the new one, you'll probably appreciate this even more. But it is very much a nice, smooth cruiser. Also really quiet in here as well. And, you know, just feels like exactly you want something like this to feel, you know, kind of blending into the background, not making, you know, a fuss. And it's also really nice with, like, the steering, for example, very direct, even with this, you know, new wheel shape here. It feels very natural, and I do actually appreciate the wheel shape being the way it is, because again, me being 5'9", it's a nice view forward still. Now, I will say the screen does come up and block my road view slightly. It is higher than the soundbar kind of dash enclosure that we have here, but you know, you're sitting up high enough in this vehicle. It's a large vehicle. It's not too big of a deal, and it doesn't come up so high that it, you know, affects my visibility negatively, I'd say. So no complaints with that so far. But otherwise, as far as other visibility stuff here, A-pillar is actually not too thick. It's not too bad, so pretty easy to see around the sides here. View out of the back, we just have a regular mirror, which is kind of surprising. There's a lot of stuff with camera rearview mirrors these days, and a vehicle like this is a prime candidate. You know, you're loading a bunch of stuff into the back, you're loading people into the back. this vehicle needs a camera review mirror more than anything else, you know, that Ford makes. And so the fact we don't have that is a little bit surprising. Now, Ford doesn't really have that in many of their other vehicles, but many of the competitors do have that. And so that's why it is kind of an important inclusion, and a very nice actual like quality of life feature to have that, again, especially if you really do pack this up a lot. But otherwise, you know, you do have all the safety tech to help you out as far as maneuvering this vehicle. You have basically everything is standard, even on a base version. The only thing is very base Expeditions don't have BlueCruise. That's something you can option on, but basically everything except that base one, and even the base one with an option package, will give you BlueCruise, and then everything else is standard. All the safety stuff: adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, automatic emergency braking, lane keeping assist, and even a 360 camera, which usually everyone charges you extra for a 360 camera. I'm very happy that we have it here in this. Another thing I'm noticing very early on here is that the throttle and the brake are both very touchy. It's going to take a little bit of practice, I think, to be perfectly smooth with this vehicle. I mean, it's not too bad, and I wouldn't say it's quite as touchy as like a BMW brake pedal, for example, if there's really kind of grabbing very quickly. But you know, especially throttle, I mean, you lean on the gas just a little bit and it immediately starts spooling up that EcoBoost V6 engine and giving you some very assertive power delivery there. But brakes, yeah, I mean, it's like I barely have to touch the brake pedal and we get some nice good stopping action. It makes it very responsive, and in a large vehicle like this, you probably want to have the very responsive brakes for sure, but just, you know, a little bit of an adjustment period potentially for people coming out of something that, you know, is set up a little different. All right, so I'm going to put it into the sport mode here, just to do an acceleration here. We're in the King Ranch, so it's the regular EcoBoost motor, and here we go. That roar does not sound like a V6. But it goes really well. So yeah, it's just the regular output version of this motor. It's a 3.5 liter twin turbocharged port and direct injected V6 engine. It does 400 horsepower, 480 pound-feet of torque. They didn't list the 0 to 60 time, but you know, it's plenty of punch. I don't think anyone's going to complain or need to, you know, get all the drag times for this. But it's a good amount of power. If you do want more power, you can get a 440 horsepower, 510 pound-feet of torque version of this same engine. And the Platinum is an option, and it's also standard in the Tremor. I think either way, though, I mean, this motor is not wanting for power. It's plenty of punch. I mean, we're going up a little like mountain road here, and I mean, it's charging right up this no problem. So obviously, a vehicle that's this heavy, you want to make sure you have, you know, some good pulling capability, and this certainly does have that. But handling is pretty good too. But you know, it's you know, I'm not going to push it a whole lot here or review this like a sports car, but you know, you can tell it obviously is set up for comfort, as it should be. As far as the pulling capability, though, that is another thing that has been improved here for 2025. So we now have a max tow rating of 9,600 pounds, and that is an improvement from before. And the biggest improvement is that you can now tow up to 7,000 pounds without the need for load leveling bars. Previously, to be pulling that much weight, you had to put those on. It was kind of a, you know, more of a pain process to do. And so the fact that you can now more easily tow more weight is just one of those ways where, you know, I do have to really commend Ford, because they've really thoughtfully looked at, okay, how do people actually use these? What are the things that are going to actually improve people's daily lives, instead of chasing specs or just, you know, checking boxes? Instead, it's like, okay, well, what can we do to make this better for people? And I think that really shows, and I think that's why there's a lot of these things, like I mentioned on the interior earlier, that really do give you, you know, a nice quality of life improvement here, and just make this even more usable than it already was. And of course, you also have all the tech to help you with your trailering. So you have, of course, trailer sway control, but you also have the trailer backup assist as well as the hitch assist. So all these things to help make it as easy as possible for you. A good amount of people that own Expeditions actually do tow with them, so that is important, and again, something they wanted to focus on to make that the best experience possible. Now, as far as the Tremor version, we got to do about an hour of off-roading on the Interlake State Trails in Indiana, which included water crossings, rough terrain, and a variety of challenging situations. The Tremor handled it all easily thanks to its high output engine, 33-inch tires on unique wheels, unique frame, nearly 2 extra inches of ground clearance for 10.6 inches total, a 2-speed transfer case, and a locking rear diff. You also get protection like a variety of skid plates, Raptor style running boards, and tech like trail turn assist, trail one pedal drive, off-road and rock crawling modes, and more. The 360 camera was honestly my most appreciated feature out here, where sometimes you couldn't see over the hood, and having the cameras made everything much less nerve-wracking. My only complaint off-road is that when you're spinning the steering wheel, the hand-over-hand feel is a bit odd with the rectangular wheel constantly having a changing radius there. Otherwise, it was great. I just wonder why they don't offer a Raptor, or better yet, a Raptor R version, for those that maybe want to bring 3 rows of passengers along for Raptor fun. Maybe someday, but in the meantime, this is a step in the right direction and the most capable Expedition from the factory ever. Alright, so now we're out on the highway here in the 2025 Expedition, and I do have the BlueCruise system on, which does come standard here on this. Now, whenever you go up to these higher trims, I believe you get a year as standard, and then beyond that, there's an option whenever you're configuring one of these and ordering one to do a lifetime BlueCruise subscription if you want for about $2,500. There's also annual and monthly plans, so even if you just only want to have it for your road trip or something like that, I'm going to go ahead and disengage it because we got some cars merging in on us here. But even if you just want to have it for your road trip there, you pay $50, use it for the month that you're road tripping or whatever, and then if you like driving yourself, you don't have to be subscribed beyond that. And so it's really nice that it does have that ability to, again, just be an on-demand kind of service if you wanted to. And as far as BlueCruise, this is the 1.4 system we have here in the Expedition. And so 1.4 basically is going to allow you to still do lane changes with the turn signal. So you still have to manually go in and tell it you want to do a lane change. Now 1.5, which is coming out in 2025 Mach-E's, and I'm assuming will be over-the-air updated to this vehicle fairly soon as well, but I don't think there's any official word on that just yet. But that is something with 1.5 where you do have truly hands-free lane changes, which is something that we do have with the Chevy Tahoe and its Super Cruise system already. That's been the case with the Super Cruise system for a couple of years now, and so this is slightly behind Tahoe as far as the ease of use out on the highway, but I'd say that 1.4 is pretty close as far as it really does stay engaged a lot longer than like I had 1.2 in another BlueCruise vehicle recently, and that in an Explorer ST kept disengaging, re-engaging, disengaging, re-engaging. This seems to be a lot more consistent and a lot more sure of itself, and so that's really a nice improvement. And again, hopefully this will continue to improve over time, over the air. But if you are shopping this versus Wagoneer or other things that aren't hands-free like this is a game changer. The difference between having your hands up here and having them down here over hours of driving truly does make a difference on your fatigue and lack thereof because of the BlueCruise function. And so I love having this, and I'd say that for this alone, I would take this over Wagoneer. I think there's other reasons to take this over Wagoneer, but even if you don't care about any of the other differences, just the fact that you can be hands-free, I think is worthwhile for sure. And the nice thing is, because they are offering that lifetime subscription with the $2,500 package, means you can bundle it into your financing or your lease deal or whatever you want there, which is really a nice way to kind of make it more affordable if you do plan to use this all the time, every day. That is really great that they don't force you into a subscription there. And so, yeah, but it's doing a really good job being nice and smooth here. Obviously, these are pretty straight highways, so nothing too challenging here currently, but, slowing down smoothly for the traffic up ahead here. And by the way, whenever you do signal the lane changes, it's pretty quick with doing it. So it's not going to be something that's something where you're going to have to take over. You can take over still if you want. And they did say how they want BlueCruise to work with you. So if you do want to put your hands on the wheel and steer around a pothole or do, various other things, you can still do that, and it doesn't immediately disengage the system. The system can work with you, but we'll go ahead and demonstrate a lane change here. It actually was going to have me go into the turning lane there for some reason for the exit. But okay, now going straight ahead here, and yeah, it did that nice and quick. It found the opening. And I also really love, too, that it does a better job of keeping you informed on what's going on. So they said that if there's an issue or there's some reason why I can't do BlueCruise, it'll tell you that and give you the reason a little bit more, which I really like, because that's something Super Cruise does very well, too, is explain to you why it's disengaging or what the problem is. I think that communication is very important. And also with having the 360 cameras now, you also do have whenever you put your turn signal on, it'll show you your blind view. So you still have the indicators here in the mirrors, but it's great to have that. That's something Hyundai pioneered, and now we're seeing it on others. And I'm really happy to see that because, again, just make sure that you have all your bases covered. You got your mirrors, you got your cameras, you got all the computers. It just gives you a very, very safe feeling out here on the highway. But again, even if you don't have BlueCruise, you do have a standard adaptive cruise control system and a stop and go still and all of that as well. So, it's really just the hands-free thing that you're paying that extra money for. But either way, these things are going to be fantastic highway cruisers. And again, so smooth, pretty quiet, and just a little bit of wind noise. But I think this is definitely going to be a great road trip vehicle if you do a lot of highway driving. One other little way where this is not quite as advanced as Super Cruise still is the fact that you can't tow with BlueCruise currently, so that's the only thing where the Chevy certainly is going to win out there, in addition to, again, doing the truly hands-free thing as of the time of me filming this that this doesn't do. But, being able to tow with BlueCruise would be really nice. Hopefully we'll see that again at some point. Hopefully that will be an over-the-air update maybe someday. But, again, no promises or anything like that just yet. So, if you are doing a lot of towing, then maybe the Tahoe will be the better choice for you as far as that goes. Fuel economy for the Expeditions is rated at 15 mpg in the city, 22 on the highway, and 18 combined. And no one really cares about fuel economy in this segment, so I'm not gonna, bother talking about that. That's pretty much, par for the course for this segment anyway. No one really has anything more fuel efficient. It's just kind of, what you get here. Now, it is worth noting, if you think that going for the EcoBoost V6 is going to give you better fuel economy than the V8 that you get in the Tahoe or the Suburban, they're basically the same there, so there's no real gain. It's really just, I think, the fact that the drivability here of having those turbos to give you the grunt down low that the V8s sometimes, don't have quite as much of a strong nature down low. Obviously V8s are great as well, and there's a certain charm there for sure, but I think around town most people are going to appreciate the immediacy of turbo boost building and that torque coming on even earlier. And then really the last thing to mention here is the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as pricing goes, these start just under $64,000 for that base active trim, which is really well equipped. It gives you a bunch of stuff as standard, again, all that safety equipment, some really nice cloth seats still, and all this technology, this giant screen, all that kind of stuff is standard. And so I think, especially with, they got rid of the lower trims. They used to have like the XL trims and all this, but like now they've gotten rid of all those and consolidated that into the active trim. I really feel like the value is really there more so than ever before, because you get so much standard equipment. And we've seen this with basically everything in the industry, where so much standard equipment gets bundled in and the base prices rise, but it really negates the need for a lot of people to go up to a mid-grade trim anymore. And so I think that active trim is going to be a really solid value there, and if you want, again, BlueCruise, you add on, a package or two, and, you're still well under 70 grand. We're still talking about expensive vehicles here, and the idea that, you can even option up a base version of the Expedition to be, close to 70, is probably a shock factor for some. Now this King Ranch we're in here is like 86 and change, and you can get the Platinum, over 90 before you even add on the Max long wheelbase version there with the, extra 12 inches in the back, and the extra, powertrain upgrade. I think there's the ultimate package of the Platinum or whatever that's like $12,000 and change. So again, you can really load one of these things up to be almost Navigator pricing if you really wanted to, but for something that, again, has as much standard equipment and is as large as this is, it is, I'd say, pretty well priced. If you look at Tahoe and you look at Wagoneer is about $2,000 less, gives you smaller screens. You do get a little bit more horsepower from that Hurricane 6-cylinder, but aside from that, the Wagoneer is just looking a little dated, even though it's only a couple of years old, compared to something like this with screens galore. Now that, the Wagoneer having less tech might be a selling perk to you. It all comes down to how you feel about all this stuff and how this is all changing here. But that's really the only one that's any kind of a value proposition, being $2,000 less than this. Otherwise, Tahoes are priced almost identically to this, And they do that on purpose, obviously. They want to be neck and neck, and so that's why it really comes down to the features more so than the pricing. And obviously, your deal is going to vary. So if you're watching this, when this is brand new and the others have been sitting around for a while, there might be some better deals on the others, but you may also get a good deal on one of these depending on when you're watching. And if you do want to get the best deal possible on one of these, or any vehicle for that matter, you're definitely going to want to head over to maranmotoring.com. There you'll click onto the new car quotes page and you get access to dealer invoice pricing, as well as also getting connected to a dealer where you can check one of these out in person for yourself and see what you think about the 2025 Expedition. So there's going to be a link in the description, as well as one in a pinned comment to take you straight to that site and get you all that information. But yeah, so overall, I'm very impressed with the Expedition here on the first drive. I think that they improved all the things I think needed to be improved. I think they left well enough alone where it could be left alone. And obviously there's some quirks here. I still don't love the fact that we've lost a lot of buttons and switches and stuff, but I think that this infotainment system is pretty well done. And all this time driving here today, I do really appreciate having this screen up so high, because I can just kind of glance over and see like my navigation instructions without having to look down, but I still have the ease of use of this touchscreen right at my fingertips here. And so I think they did a pretty good job here on it. Obviously, again, always little improvements that could be made, and I'd like to see BlueCruise 1.5 here rolled out soon. Hopefully we get that sooner rather than later. But in the meantime, I think Expedition did a great job here on it. Let me know your thoughts though on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Ford for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.